Guys, we need to talk for a minute about prices in the UK. It's really quite funny because I've been doing a lot of price research, and you know what? You just can't avoid it at this stage. You look at your bills, you look at your costs, you look at how much money you're spending on essentials, and you can't really avoid it, right? The bills are coming in, the cost of everything is so high. I went shopping just the other day. I bought a couple of not even really major things, like a couple of breakfast foods and stuff. £35 it was. £35 for a bit of breakfast stuff that's going to last me maybe a week or two. Now, I'm not necessarily complaining, but it's something that I think we need to speak about a little bit more. Because for everybody, the cost of everything really is now becoming intolerable. And it's really affecting everybody in their own ways, right? From the richer people in the middle class to the poorest people on the lowest incomes. You can't really avoid how much things are these days. It's impossible not to notice. And then you've got to factor in things which are, again, essential. Your food costs, which are absolutely skyrocketing. You can go for a full-on shop for a single person. It could be £70, £80 for a week. A week. And that is not buying the luxury goods, it's not buying the high-end brands. Maybe at the worst you could cut it down to 50 if you really, really needed to, but even then, £50 it can be. So there's that. Then there's rent, which, is really getting ridiculous. I've been looking at some new places for me to live in, and your rent costs really can be like £800 a month. Yeah, people will say, yeah, you can share a flat. But you look at the flat shares, it's £600 a month to share a flat with 7, 8, 9 other people, a place which is ostensibly just as limiting as living at home with parents. And perhaps that's one of the things hitting youngest people hard. Because, you try and get a good job, you try and get a good income. You get an income of, let's say, I don't know, 25, 26k, and people say, well, you can get better than that. Guys, this is when you do everything right. You go university, you get a degree in a good subject, and your graduate salary is going to be like 20, 25, maybe even 24, up to maybe 27k. You factor in your taxes, maybe you get to walk home with 22 to 25k max. So we'll say you walk home with 25k. We'll say your rent can be as much as £1,000 a month. That could take away 12 straight away, so half of your money's almost gone on rent. That doesn't even factor in your council tax bills, your food costs, your energy costs. If you have a car, you've got no money left at the end of the month, at the end of the year. You have no money left. And the alternative that people give is to look for higher paying jobs. They're not hiring. They are not hiring for a lot of people. A lot of people that I know that are very, very talented, and that's not an opinion, that's in terms of, their records. They've got records working at big companies, they've got degrees. There's hiring freezes, or AI simply just not even accepting them for a job interview. That is the reality of today's jobs market. It's hard to find these high paying jobs that everybody goes on about. And a lot of the jobs that do pay just a little bit above minimum wage, those ones that people say are good and people should be happy for, you look at the hours and you look at the working conditions, and we wonder why nobody really wants it. We talk about a £12 something minimum wage like it's good. Now, of course, in times gone by, and to older people, this does seem huge. I was talking to my grandma about this the other day, and she was saying that, young people these days, they don't know how good they've got it. £12 minimum wage, back in my day, it was £6. And that sounds all well and good, until you factor in that costs of everything have risen significantly. Again, you go shopping for your food. You go pay your bills. You pay all your taxes. There's not much left at the end of the month. And that's if you're on these average sorts of salaries. Now then we can talk about the national average salary, which is supposedly something closer to 40k. However, this is going to factor in the higher earners in places like London and Manchester. That's not most people. Most people's jobs, realistically, especially for a lot of minimum wage workers, which probably do make up the majority of a lot of work, their income is really going to max out at 30k. And that sounds great until you factor in all of these living costs. And bear in mind that calculation that I said about not really having any money left speaks about someone like myself, or maybe you guys. We're going to be talking about a single person living alone Your outgoings can be as much as, again, your entire salary. You can be left with little to nothing at the end of the month. Where is the money to save? Where is the money to invest? And I know it is an absolute privilege, and I'm sure some old people in the comment section are going to say, well, that's a privilege, you should consider yourself. Where is the time to have a social life, right? Where is the money to have a social life? That's another thing, right? The cost of socializing. Now, of course, you can still go for a walk, and that is free. I do like to do that, and my friends like to do that with me. But I think everybody now knows, or everybody agrees, it's nice to go out once in a while. You know, let's say, for example, you are dating someone, right? And we'll assume that you're going to be the one paying. So let's say me. Let's say I'm dating a girl, right? And I want to take her for food. We'll say pizza, which is something that I like. And this is something that is relatively similar to a story that actually did happen to me the other day. So we went for food, drinks, that's it, right? So one drink each, non-alcoholic, pizza, not a particularly fancy place, £40, right? £40. Sometimes it can be as much as £50 or £60, or even £70 for two people to go and have food. That's a full day's work, basically, after taxes and everything else. Now, that is a privilege and a luxury. But just think about that for a second. You know, I was eavesdropping on somebody's conversation the other day, wrongly or rightly, and it was two girls, and they were talking about the fact they were going to be going out that night, and that they were going to get 2 drinks, and they said it was going to cost £30, and I was thinking, yeah, that's not realistic. But then I started to think about it. If you go to a cocktail bar, it is £15 per drink. So the cost of £30 for 2 girls having 2 cocktails is not unrealistic at all. 2 drinks, by the way. So that is becoming increasingly hard for people to buy. So the luxuries are written off for a lot of people. And again, they are luxuries, but they are written off. Privileges that perhaps other generations may have once been able to afford. Maybe not, maybe, depends on when they lived and what they did. Housing is taking up the majority, and obviously taxes and other associated bills, taking up the majority of most people's income. Now you start to think about what happens if you have kids. Well, let's just assume that you are fortunate, and in today's market, you know, it's not always the case, but we'll assume that you're a 2-parent household and you're both working full time. That might take your household income up to 50k. So that's good. But is it going to be enough to raise 2 kids, 3 kids? Now, it can be done. Let's not say it can't. Of course it can. But just take a minute to think about this. Think about all of this. And especially think about this from the prospect of a young person. Interestingly, the majority of my audience is mainly older people. And I find that quite surprising. I would have thought it'd be people my age watching my videos, but I don't mind. And a lot of you guys are very switched on to what is happening in today's market. You understand that it's very difficult for young people. But then you get the odd one saying, well, you need to suck it up. And look, guys, look at the cost of houses. Most people can't afford a house on a good wage, on a good salary. And people can say whatever they want about this, but compare this to other countries out there. Compare it to places like the US. Compare it to other salaries of even poor countries and the proportional income, right? Because everything's proportional. So, for example, £1 would be a lot of money if your rent was 50p. So, 25k can be a tiny amount of money if your rent is 16 a year, for example, right? Everything is proportionate. So, people see the numbers and they think it means a lot. It doesn't in a lot of cases. And it seems that unless you have a side hustle, which I've made a video about today, speaking about the fact that I think that's probably the only way to go forwards if you want to have some sort of a decent future. Unless you have some sort of a high income job, a sales skill, or something else, maybe a trade. I know a lot of people talk about trades, and yeah, trades can make good money, obviously. But this idea that of the traditional office job and all that sort of stuff, or even the average worker being able to afford the average sort of stuff, it's not going to be the case, or it's not even being the case at the minute. It is absolutely not that much the case anymore. And people can like this video, dislike this video, they can say whatever they want. Obviously, some other countries have it harder. Obviously, some people have it very well in the UK. People aren't going to watch this video all the way till the 10-minute mark, and they're just going to critique my criticisms. I am aware that it is not impossible to live in the UK. I am aware that the UK is still one of the better countries in the whole world to live in. But this is a first world nation. And it is a very difficult argument to make when you pay X amount of money on rent. You've got no money left for fun, for savings. And you know, old people, they don't all have it that much better. When you see their allowances and stuff being cut, right? I'm not that attuned to what old people get. I know they get like state pension and stuff sometimes, but I'm not that attuned to what old people make or get. But even they're having it tough. Single parent households, multi-parent households, young people, old people. It's very difficult for everybody because it doesn't matter what age you are. You go to the shop and you pay £180 for your shopping, you quickly realise that something's not right. You quickly realise that something is very not right. Whether you can afford it or not, the shop that used to cost £100 now costing £180 in an increase in the space of 4 years. It's messed up, guys. It's absolutely messed up. And by the way, you can say what you want, but I love the UK, right? I actually do love the UK. So people can say, you know, well, you would think that, you know, it's actually quite interesting to me because, to be honest, when I make videos like this, I do get a lot of racist comments in them. I'm just going to say it straight up, that's true. In a lot of cases, there are a lot of racist comments under these videos. But it's nothing like that for me. I love the UK. I see myself as British. I'm a British citizen. You know, maybe not traditionally of the British look, that's fair enough. But I love the UK. I see it as my country. But why can we not acknowledge these facts? We need to acknowledge these facts because it really is getting out of hand. And a lot of people are really starting to wake up to it. You know, when it was increases of, let's say, you know, the shop went from £100 to 120, that's bad, but most people can deal with it. When the same shop goes up to 180, 200 for the same things, people are starting to get annoyed. And you can say what you want about a little 7-10% minimum wage rise. It's just pushing the cost of stuff up and everything's getting pushed up. It's becoming very much a challenge, and it's no wonder why a lot of people are absolutely fed up with the way that things are going. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments, guys. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed, do let me know. And again, leave your opinions in the comments.